Now, if you remember in the previous lesson, we exploited a SQL injection vulnerability in a search box. And the search function basically compares the user's input into a database by using a like statement, right? So then we created SQL queries that can work well with the like statement. So now we're going to do almost the same thing, but this time with something different. Let me show you. So go to BWAP, choose SQL injection, post select. So on this page, you select a movie, and the information about movies will show in the table below. And to see the HTTP request, enable Foxy proxy and select a movie. And it is a post request. And the movie ID is sent to the server. All right, so nothing else needs to be in the request. Just send the request to the repeater tool and forward it. And look at that. See, the information about the movie is in the table here. Then forward and intercept off. Now, before we go any further, let's have a look at the code. So function is here to call security checks according to security levels. Okay, we already displayed the functions. So scroll down to see the SQL query, and here's a query. So it has two parts. Now the second part is where the user input comes in. So it takes an exact numeric value and then selects everything about this record. So we need to write appropriate queries to work with this query, and then the remaining code will display the output. But now, here's a problem. Only the first record can be displayed. So when pulling data, we need to be concerned with this, okay? Only the first record can be displayed. Remember that. Okay, so go back, open repeater, check the main request again, and it shows the data. So put a single quote, and look, we have a syntax error. So then put another single quote, and there's the same syntax error. Another one. Syntax error again. All right, so I'm going to add a different payload. And this time it works. So I think this movie must be the first record. So now I'll discover the column numbers, order by 1. The movie name is changed. That also proves the vulnerability. 3 columns. No. 5 columns. No. 7. No. 9 columns. No, but we do get an error. 8 columns. No, and an error again. So the number of this columns in the select statement is 7. Now, of course, I already know it, but let's have a look at the way that we detected it. So I followed it this way. Okay, so now write this to discover which columns are displayed. So except 1, all are displayed. SQL injection is identified. So we should pull actual data and metadata about the server. So first, let's pull version, user, and current database. We are the root user and use the BWAP database. And the version is 5.0.96. And we can also look up vulnerabilities for this version, but it's not in what we're doing right now. And by the way, you can always change this number to null. It'll also work. Okay, so get the database names. And this query only gets the first record. So we need to change it. So if you add a limit clause like that, you can pull all the database names in turn. And this will get the information schema. So next one is BWAP. Then 2, then 3. You can also try this one. All right, so now we have all the database names. So then we can get the table names. And it will display only the first one as well. And we can use the limit clause just like that to specify all the tables. Or this payload to group them. All tables are in one row now. So to get the tables of the BWAP database, use this. 5 table names are here. And then we need column names. And this restriction looks familiar, just the first record. So adding the limit clause, we can pull the columns. Yeah, but it's not very efficient, is it? Especially when you manually exploit the application. So use this to get the columns of the movies table. This one's better. So now we know the information about the database and tables, so we can pull the actual data. And this payload can work, but we need to get over our one-line problem. How are we going to do that? Well, the limit clause can help us again. But I know this way is kind of boring and slow, but let's just stop for a second, and it's not an exercise anymore. Let's think of it as a very important table, so it's worth the step-by-step approach. Of course, you can also write a crazy query like this. All right, so anyway, all data is grouped into one line, and due to being able to read and write files from and to the system, I think you can go ahead and run this payload. And then this payload will send the result to a file. And don't worry about the warning. It works. And with this new payload, you can view that file. Okay, so now it's time to increase our level to medium. So I'm going to just change this here to 1. But this time, the query below won't work. So the problem here is single quotes. The application sanitizes the input. So that means we need to get rid of them. But instead of just writing strings in single quotes, I'm going to use the char function with ASCII values. So let's see how that works. Just like that, in the columns, they are all here. And the magic file? And you know this. So good. And the rest is here for you to discover.